the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. With your hosts, Joe Bond and AJ Applegarth.
Touchdown! All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. AJ Applegarth running a little late tonight, so I'm going to be riding solo just for a few minutes, but I do have a guest to help out. Before we jump into everything, though, just want to remind you all to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave those comments. We appreciate it and love hearing from you. And, of course, jump over to FantasySixPack.net, become an all-access member. We have a ton of stuff there for you. We've got the award-winning rankings. We've got all the DFS content. We've got the betting content. And best of all, we've got our Discord where you can come in and ask all of us your custom league questions and get that specific advice that you need to win your league. So, yeah, we're going to do the usual tonight, but let me just bring in our guest here, Mr. Keith Fleming, DFS contributor here over at Fantasy Six-Pack and Fantasy and Frames. How's it going tonight, man?
It's very well. Other than the Jordan Mason. Yeah, just trying to ruin my evening, but doing very well. Appreciate you having me on. And I'm not saying this just because obviously you're the boss of one of the sites that I work for, but y'all's intro is the best anywhere in fantasy. I freaking love it. As a kid from the 80s, Tecmo Bowl was my jam. I just, every time it gives me a kick when I watch it.
I love it, man. I never want to change it. I'm like definitely afraid if like AJ ever leaves the show and I have to like redo it. Hopefully I can convince Davis and whoever his friend one that helped us out to do it again. Because it is so awesome. But all right, man. So we're going to go through some start-sit questions that our producer, Mike LaPlante, voice in the sky, will call out to us. But do want to mention, you mentioned the Jordan Mason injury. It is the Thursday night football game. It's halftime of that. It is 13-3, I believe. No, 16-3.
Yeah,
16-3, sorry.
Yeah.
Jordan Mason was having a good night. Got hit pretty hard on his shoulder. Came back on the sideline looking like he was ready to go. I don't know if the 49ers were just like, I think we got this one. Don't worry about it. Or what. But look, if he goes out, I mean, like we're looking, sounds like at best a month-ish away from CMC. Is it Guerrero? Is it whatever his name is? Like who's going to be the next up there, you think?
I mean, I don't mean this to sound disrespectful because Jordan Mason's a really good running back. I'm one of those people who believe if the coach's last name is Shanahan and you throw pretty much any running back that is competent in the NFL back there, they're going to do pretty well because they're just both Kyle and his dad are two of the greats at scheming running backs. And I mean, you just look at the list of guys that have had success in these systems. I think in Atlanta where Tevin Coleman. How did Tevin Coleman do in his career when he was not with Kyle Shanahan? True. I think he's going to figure it out. So, yeah, it probably will be.
Deontay Foreman.
I mean, the list it goes on and on. So whoever that person is, like if they don't sign somebody, I would be absolutely spending a lot of my waiver money that I have left on any 49ers running back. And you would think they would be extra cautious because I'm of the belief CMC may be done. Like done. I really believe that. From everything I've heard about this injury, it is something that it's very difficult to not re-aggravate it, and it's extremely painful. And that is one of the reasons why he's practicing in a limited capacity, but doesn't seem to be getting any closer to playing. And I would not wager that CMC is going to be back. I know that's what they want, and they're ramping up for, and I hope he does, but I would be very precautious with Jordan Mason, especially if they feel like they can get away with sitting him for a few games and having him healthy, because they do need one of those two guys, at least, for the duration of the season.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard some other people say that, they think that this could be it for CMC, that you're not the first person I've heard that from. Yeah. I don't know, man. I hope not, because he's fun to watch.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I get it. I totally get that that's an issue. I kind of wonder like if we hear Mason's only out for like a week or two, like how much fab do you really blow on?
If I had Mason a lot, if I didn't, then that would completely change it.
Yeah,
And you can get by. Don't spend let somebody else spend a bunch of money on a 2-week Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's because to me, like we still don't know about CMC. Like surprised he could actually come back and be legit. So then what?
Mm-hmm.
You're getting like a 3-week fill-in, 4-week fill-in at best.
Sure.
And maybe not even that if Mason does come back. So it's an interesting case study that we're gonna have to. I'm sure
I should say if you had CMC too. I said if you had Mason, if you're somebody holding on for CMC, I would also just pick up another share in that Niners backfield just in case.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, let's jump into these start sit questions. Mike, you've got the floor. Let's go for it, man.
All right, and as always, you get to start first with the QBs. You got Caleb Williams versus Jacksonville in London, or CJ Stroud at New England without Nico Collins. Yeah, that's the tough one without Nico Collins.
Yeah, so got Caleb and Stroud here. Very interesting. No Nico Collins. Tank Dell has not been awesome. Caleb's been up and down. I tell you, this is a tough one, man. I really do struggle with this one. The ECR says it's Caleb Williams. The projections say it's CJ Stroud. So they're 50-50. My take on it is I'm actually going to go Caleb Williams. Jacksonville's defense has been atrocious. Not that New England has been awesome, but I don't know, man. There's just something. Stroud didn't look great after Nico went out last week. I still don't think we're going to get Mixon back this week either. So that's just, something to worry about. Caleb has had 2 out of 3 pretty good games here now. So it seems like the arrow is pointing up for Caleb. He's starting to figure things out. There was an article that I read today that just the headline was basically like he's starting to take command of this offense. He's starting to feel a little bit more ready for what's getting thrown at him. So yeah, I'm gonna lean Caleb just slightly. It's not a huge gap.
I agree with you. Before I get into this is why you should not pay attention to games on your phone. So excited to see Jordan Mason pushed out of bounds for 9 yards. First play of the game in the second half. In quotations, injury update. Mason is injured. It's like, what is going on? I hope that they're now have, I think, just put his return back to the game, but I don't like the fact that he got nicked up again right back on the first carry in the second half. But I completely agree with you this on Caleb Williams. I'm a little scared because CJ Stroud's 2 wide receivers are top, and Dell and Diggs both really thrive man-to-man defense. The Patriots run man-to-man defense at one of the highest rates in the NFL. They might run more zone because, again, Collins is not there to where both Dell and Diggs are much better versus man than they are versus zone. But Williams, when he's playing defenses ranked in the top 20 against the pass, 27 of 66, 267, 2 interceptions, averaging 8 points per game. In the other 3 games against teams ranked 21st or worse against the pass, 70 of 104, 824 yards, 5 touchdowns, more importantly, 20.45 points per game. Those 3 teams, the Colts, 4th most passing yards allowed, Panthers, 9th most, Rams, 10th most. The Jags have allowed the 2nd most passing yards in the NFL. That is very good for Caleb Williams. And then, oh, by the way, he can run a little bit, which is a bonus. Like, it's so important to have that extra, even if it's just a little bit. And he's got 113 yards and a touchdown on the ground through 5 games. That's 2 free points a game at the QB position is the way I look at it. With the touchdown, you basically can add another point. So, I mean, he's basically been scoring 3 points a game on the ground. I think it's a better matchup. And, I mean, I know London games can be weird, but this guy, I was very high on him. I know it wasn't a great start, but I think we're starting to see the talent. And I mean, Chicago's got weapons. Like, they really do around them. All of a sudden, the run game's starting to look better. I just think the Jags defense is one of the bottom 3 or 4 in the NFL. So I like Caleb Williams, as crazy as it seems, over CJ Stroud.
Yeah, did not think I'd be saying that.
No.
Come week 6, but we do have a couple of questions here.
I was gonna say, let's pull up Chad's first. Did we lose AJ?
Was AJ ever really here?
The tree falls in the forest. Does it make a sound?
No, AJ randomly made other plans. He'll be here soonish.
He had a thing.
I don't know what that means. So we just started. So thanks, Keith, for stepping in.
Absolutely.
Thankfully, we had a guest, because otherwise it would have been just me and I guess Mike.
Wow, say it with some more positivity.
Yeah, I guess. All right, let's get to a question here from my thing just clicked here. Jay Smells. I think you got to work on that. I have Rashad White, Breece Hall, Stroud, Jordan Love, Deontay Johnson. This is a lot. Malik Neighbor, Brian Thomas Jr., McBride, Kyle Pitts, Chase Brown. Okay.
What his question
what
is?
Do you think of my team? What do you think?
Yeah.
I feel I need a stud running back to round it out.
I don't think so, right? I mean, he's got Jonathan Brooks, who's coming off of IR. I think he's going to be a good player down the stretch. He's got Chase Brown, who I do believe with each week is carving out more and more of that Bengals running back role, and that's one of the best offenses in the NFL. And I know Breece Hall makes you want to vomit right now, but I mean, he's Breece Hall. He kind of has been a slow starter in his career. This is not that uncommon. Even if you look last year where he went absolutely, bananas the last 5-6 weeks, he didn't get off to a great start either. Maybe the change in coaching. I wouldn't do anything drastic, to be honest, because you have so many running backs. I wouldn't expect much from Rashad White, and I'm worried that Tony Pollard may end up losing his job to Tajay Spears as the season goes on. But, I mean, you also have Tank Bigsby, I didn't even notice, who's another guy who has been the far more efficient back in the offense and is earning more opportunities by the day.
Yeah, and to that note on Tank Bigsby, I mentioned in the usage article that this week that I actually think this is turning into a Bigsby's the running down back, like the getting the carries, and Etienne's turning into the passing down back. That's what I think is going to happen going forward. They won their first game kind of leaning into that this past week. So if it works again, don't be surprised. Chad, I'm not really worried about that because I signed the paycheck. So if he wants that, then he wouldn't be an idiot. So there we go.
That's checkmate right there.
Sad face.
Oh, that was. Thanks for setting that one up for me, Chad. Loved it. All right, I know we just got another question in, but let's get to the next start sit, and then we'll jump on your sober money.
All right, so the next one here, Keith, you get to start us off with it, and you get, this just happens to fall in line perfectly. You get Kirk Cousins playing the Panthers off a hot week, or do you want Baker Mayfield against the Saints? Fight.
Full disclosure, huge Atlanta Falcons fan. Yes, feel sorry for me. It has been a tough ride for the last 3 decades. But this passing offense, really good. 5th in passing yards, 6th in passing touchdowns. What I love is we were throwing it overall for the season. 61% of our offensive snaps have resulted in a pass play. As we transition right from the Arthur Smith, just, oh my God, I want to burn my eyes with Clorox, to the more pass happy Raheem Morris one. But during the Falcons 2-game win streak, that number has swelled to 75% of their plays have been passes. They're just like, look, we're not running the ball efficiently. F it. We're going to sling it. And they scored 62 points in those 2 games compared to 49 in the first 3. So it's working. They are just peppering Darnell Mooney and Drake London, who are receiving 50% of the absurd amount of passes that Kirk Cousins has thrown the last 2 games. They've caught 30 passes for 359 yards and 3 scores. And you might say, yes, this Panthers run defense is awful, and this would be a great opportunity for the Falcons to get that run game going with Bijan Algier. Very fair, but I would have said the same thing last week against Tampa. And in a game that was competitive throughout, we threw it 58 fucking times and ran it 18. So we are throwing the rock in Atlanta right now. Carolina's secondary right now allows the most passing touchdowns in the NFL. They're bottom 10 in yards per attempt, opposing QBR rating, passing plays of 20 and 40 yards. Hello, Darnell Mooney has been making big plays left and right and is fifth in deep targets so far among wide receivers. I think Atlanta is just finding themselves out. I think this offense is really good. I do not believe in our defense still. We can't pressure the quarterback. I have concerns. But this offense is elite, and I think they're going to throw it. And the fact that Bijan is on the injury list, I actually think this could end up being a game that Algier sees more carries in if we do run it. But they're going to throw it plenty. Again, 58-18 versus Tampa is one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL, and that was a game that was competitive all the way through overtime. So I'm going with Cousins as much as I love Baker this year.
This is a straight up coin flip for me. I do have Baker right now ranked 1 ahead of Kirk Cousins, but man, this was one of the ones where it was like, I don't know. And I just kind of left it. I was like, I still got a couple days to really decide. Look, I look at it one way, like, the stats say, look, play Kirk Cousins coming off that hot game. The offense does seem to be trending up, but like, outside of last week's game, like even the passing offense, Kirk more than, like some of the receivers. The receivers were still doing well fantasy wise. Kirk was still like QB 23, I believe, before last week. Like it wasn't great. Last week was just like crazy good. Nobody saw that coming. And then, and then you look at the matchup. The matchup is great. Like you just said, Keith. Baker's matchup is not so great on paper. However, you look at the Saints, and outside of those first 2 games where they really just slaughtered, both the Panthers and the Cowboys, they've kind of struggled. The Eagles game was sort of like the tipping point. It was kind of like, oh wait, we're still good, but we're actually not good. And then the Falcons did pretty well against them. The Chiefs did pretty well against them. Like it's gone in the opposite direction. And, I still kind of like Baker a little more, but they're so close. Like
any concern with Rattler starting for the Saints, and there's a chance that this game could get out of hand. This could be the Bucky Irving game to where we cannot get pressure. Andy Dalton is a sneaky good play in like DFS this week. I'd feel a lot better if Deontay Johnson plays. Don't get me wrong. If he's out, that changes that. But I do think Carolina's going to be able to move the ball on us. Chuba's looked good to where I worry like Rattler, man, it could get ugly fast in that game. Making your first start versus head coach who is one of the best at scheming, ways to confuse QBs of anybody in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. It could get out of hand pretty quickly. You kind of have to think though, like if it's going to get out of hand, it's going to be because Baker and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin do their thing, right? It's not going to be because of Bucky Irving. It's not going to be because of Rashad White. It's just not going to be. So it's going to go through the passing game to get out of hand. And so that doesn't really worry me as much. So I still lean Baker just a little bit, just because he has been a bit more consistent. Kirk Cousins has had like the one monster game. 500 yards is really going to skew your stats and move you up the rankings really quick. In just 5 weeks, especially when a couple of teams have buys and things like that. I mean, just look at the tight ends, right? One good game is still keeping you in the top 5 of tight ends in fantasy. Like, okay, so.
It's also a guy, though, returning off of an Achilles injury, new weapons. And I think that they are finding their niche. And again, 75% of their offensive plays the last 2 weeks have been passing plays. Both of those games were competitive.
Breaking news.
I think that they're moving in that direction where you're going to see a very pass-heavy offense the rest of the season.
I have breaking news. we have a third guest. Welcome to the stage, AJ. How's it going, AJ?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi. What's up?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Do you want to give your quick 2 cents on this one, Kirk or
There you
Baker?
go.
You wanted to move on to running backs.
This is actually a really interesting one because I won Kirk Cousins in my ESPN league. I already had Baker, and I also had Purdy, who I ultimately dropped for Tampa's defense. Yeah, I'm going Cousins on this one. It's close, but New Orleans has a really good defense, and I think that this could be a game where Baker may tail off a little from what he's done. Both of these guys coming off of really nice games, so it's a hard coin toss, but I'm going with Cousins strictly for the matchup on this one.
All right. I'm outnumbered here. That's fine. Like I said, it was close. I mean, I wouldn't fault you either way. All right, we got the question here. Sober money. Would y'all trade Gibbs and Evans for a 2025 first, a 2025 third, a 26 first, a 26 third? Dynasty Superflex rebuilding league. No. Well, Evans.
Rebuilding? I would.
Yeah. If you're totally rebuilding, Mike Evans has probably got a year or two left in him max.
I mean, we've been saying that for 5 years, but yeah, I agree with you. Like we probably got like a year.
I know. But I wasn't going like he's out. But
no, I'm the one that every year is like Evans is done. Sell on him, and then I look up, he's got 10 touchdowns and 1,000 yards for like 12 weeks. And it's like, yeah, good call, Keith.
Damn it.
you
did it again.
Like 40 other fantasy analysts that I know, if not more. But yeah, I think that's okay. I mean, it's
basically Gibbs for all that stuff. That's a pretty big haul for Gibbs when to me running backs are just not valuable. You can find running backs, man. I truly believe that in Dynasty. It's the receivers, the QBs. If you get a stud tight end, you want to hold on to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
My input is the way this season is going. If you're rebuilding, trade the healthy players while you got them.
Yeah, right. No kidding.
They may not last very long. So good deal. All right. Next up.
All right, AJ, I feel bad giving you this one, but you know what? I don't care. You got Breece Hall versus Buffalo on Monday night, David Montgomery versus Dallas, or James Conner at Green Bay. You get to start 2, sit 1, fight.
Wait. This is the receiver setup. Why are we doing this to running backs now? What are you doing?
If you were paying
I wasn't gone that long. Jeez.
If you were paying attention to the chat that I told you to check, then you would know that without anybody else's approval, Mike decided to turn the running backs into a 3-part.
Let's be real. Most leagues are starting 2 running backs.
He turned the difficulty up to all Madden. I mean, is what he did. I like it.
I mean, I literally asked on Discord. I finally put a question up and tagged whoever, and then it's like crickets.
Hey, I answered.
Yeah. You came in the room, and then you're like answered Dave's question. That's like 3 up from my question, and then I'm like, what? Hello, I'm here finally. But I did not.
I was ignoring you like you ignore us in Discord.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah,
little the old get what you take sort of.
The old favorite passage from the Bible.
Yes.
Do unto others as they do.
That was also when I was trying to pick mulch out of my dog's mouth, like for the 800th time today. So. Sorry,
okay.
I was
it's a delicacy in your dog's defense.
Yes. Exactly. Well, that rocks. Apparently, I didn't know that was a thing for dogs. Apparently, my dog likes to eat rocks.
All right. So, Breece Hall, Buffalo, David Montgomery, Dallas, and James Conner, Green Bay. I'm not sending Montgomery out of these 3 because he's just been a touchdown machine. He's good for 1. Dallas. Defense not as good as advertised coming into the season. Not sure about the health of Parsons and Lawrence this week. But even if they're there, Dallas still sucks. So
31st run DVOA to your point.
I think they're easy to run on, obviously, just as Keith alluded to. So definitely starting Montgomery. The other one, I think you got to start Breece Hall. Buffalo just got torched by Derrick Henry a couple weeks ago, and Breece Hall was a first-round bona fide pick. You got to start your guys. At this, even though it's week 6, and it's been a really weird, wonky season, but Breece Hall, you're starting Breece Hall. Connor, no, I'm passing on Connor.
Joe, take it away.
Oh, I was gonna say, do we know who's next? I know everybody wants to sit Breece Hall.
I love the way Keith worded it. I did turn the difficulty up to all Madden on you guys.
I get it. Everybody wants to sit Breece Hall. I can't do it quite yet. I'm just not there. It's just so stud. Connor and Montgomery, man, this is a coin flip for me. I'm leaning Connor, actually. I know.
Explain your thoughts.
Dallas has been really bad, but like I feel like if the Cardinals are going to win this game, they need to get the ground game going. This passing attack just really isn't clicking yet. Feels like the first 2 drives they can pass the ball, and then they decided like they're not going to catch anything anymore. I'm not really sure why, but it's just one of those
strategy, man.
Yeah, right. And I mean, like Green Bay hasn't been awesome against the run either. So like, I'll take the guy who's getting all the carries over a guy who's getting half the carries, even though it still is a ton. I get it, but I'll lean Connor, and give me Breece Hall. I know it's tough, but give me Breece Hall still.
I'm going to try to be a gymnast here and say that I'm definitely starting James Conner. You can run on Green Bay. They're a funnel. That's what they do. They want teams to run on them. They know that their weakness is they can get really beat up in the pass, so they just give you 5-6 yards at a time and hope teams still get aggressive and end up making a mistake in the passing game. That's why they have so many interceptions this year. So then it's David Montgomery, Breece Hall. If it's PPR, I'm taking Breece Hall because of the reception upside. I mean, he's got 21 receptions this season, so his floor is still decent. Maybe it is Salah. I mean, I know a lot of people say that's ridiculous, but we've seen these coaching changes make a huge difference with teams. Do we not remember the Raiders last year who were lifeless, and then they're beating the Chiefs on Thanksgiving? It's Antonio Pierce is their interim coach. So, but it's hard. Again, if this was a non-PPR league, I would be going with Montgomery and Connor because, again, Montgomery, he scored in every single game. Dallas is 31st in DVOA. And the reason I would go Connor over Hall is his production's been better and he's actually playing more snaps. I mean, if you look in the games that both of these guys have been healthy and the games have been competitive, the last 2, Connor 87 and 78% of snaps. Breece has lost a lot to Allen, who's been very good, to where it's 72 and 68%. But I still, again, in a PPR league, you can't sit him because he's got 21 receptions in 5 games.
All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. And Joe, you also get to start us off with the next question here. You got Travis Etienne against the Bears, J.K. Dobbins versus the Broncos, or Najee Harris versus the Raiders. Who, man, it's been rough. He's one of, I think, the only qualified carrier of 55 rushing attempts, no touchdown.
I really liked Najee last week too. I thought that was a smash spot, and wow, that let me down along with everybody else. But it is what it is. I don't really like any of these guys. Next question. I pass. No.
Sorry.
I'm gonna sit Etienne. I really do worry, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier with the question that came up about the guy's team. I really do worry that Bigsby is taking this backfield over as far as the the carries go. Etienne's going to get involved in the passing game. He got 6 receptions last week, but he got out carried by Bigsby by quite a bit. I don't remember. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but it was, I believe, almost double. And Bigsby was far better. It has been all year long. So, I don't really like Dobbins. I don't really like Harris either. It gets pretty ugly pretty fast in the running back landscape here this week. But yeah, give me the bottom 2 there, Dobbins and Harris.
All right, Keith, what you got?
So volume to me is what matters. And the bottom line is the volume is there for Dobbins and Harris, and for Etienne, it's going the wrong direction. The last 3 weeks, Etienne went from 67% of the snap shares to 54% to 44%. And again, that is Joe's point of Tank is just eating into his role in this Jaguars offense. You look, Dobbins has been doing the exact opposite, where 3 weeks ago, 48%, then 65%, and a season high 71% of the snaps, and even more, a higher percentage of actually the rush attempts in that Chargers offense, as there's not really so much of a timeshare between Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins anymore. And I got burned by Najee last week too, Joe. I feel you, but I'm going back to the well. I don't care. Patterson and Warren are out. He is seeing the volume, right? Like he's had 20 touches per game over his last 3. And despite not scoring a touchdown in full PPR settings, he's averaging over 11 points per game in that span. So a touchdown in any one of those, and you're happy, right? Like that's a really good game. He scored 16, 17 points. This Raiders D allows 5 yards per attempt. That's not good. He's seen multiple red zone attempts in the last 3 games. And the Raiders played the last 3 weeks, the Panthers, the Broncos, and the Browns. Not exactly great run offenses. Those teams are averaging over 100 yards per game on the ground versus his defense. And the other thing I really like is they've been giving up receptions. The Raiders, the last 24 catches for 140 yards by opposing running backs in the passing game. And Najee Harris, without Cordell and without Warren, quietly becoming a little bit of a pass-catching back. 13 targets the last 3 weeks, 10 receptions, 105 yards. So for me, it's pretty easy. And I'm sure this means Etienne's going to score 40 points this week, and I'll apologize in advance. But I'm looking at volume. That's what I look at running backs, especially when there's not much difference in talent, and I don't feel like there is in these 3 guys. So I'm going to go with Najee, who's going to get a Lions workload, Dobbins, who's getting a huge workload, and then Etienne's basically now at a 50-50 timeshare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. Dobbins and Harris is going to be my pick here. Etienne, I've got in a, I guess, kind of dynasty keeper league, and I actually had Bigsby too, and I stupidly dropped him a few weeks into the season because.
No, you didn't. He did nothing last year, and he was doing nothing at the beginning. He disappointed me last year.
It was I needed depth at receiver. I had some injuries I was dealing with. So he was my cut, and then of course as soon as I cut him, he blows up. So I don't know if I reverse jinxed myself on that one, but Bigsby's definitely been the guy, and Joe, you alluded to it there with his workload, coming up. He had 13 carries to 6 for Etienne last week, and it's only a 40% snap share. But he's doing so much with his opportunity. I mean, it's 77 yards per carry last week, 2 touchdowns, huge. He even had a reception for 28 yards. So, I know Etienne's been a little banged up too. So that's something to keep an eye on here as well. Like he's an obvious sit if he ends up, not playing this week. But even with him being questionable, I'm still sitting him. I sat him in that league this week. I'm not willing to take the risk on it.
All right. Now the difficulty goes up even more into the wide receiver category. AJ. Actually, no, Keith. That's my bad. Keith, you get to start us off on this one. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., Zay Flowers, and T. Higgins. Harrison against the Vikings, Flowers against the Commanders, and Higgins versus the Giants. Fight.
Zay Flowers is the smash play for me out of this group. Like, there's no
Careful.
Why is that?
I'm kidding.
Well, I mean,
I'm
Careful,
kidding. I'm
because
not.
Washington's defense is still sucky.
very good team. The secondary not so great.
I'm kidding.
His Flowers put up his second 20-point performance in his last 4 games. The more important thing, he's seen 10 targets in 60% of his 5 games this season, 10 or more. He has become, I mean, we've seen Andrews lose his role likely as week to week. Like, he is the one constant in this Ravens passing game. So I think Flowers is a wonderful play this week because Washington's offense, man, number 1 wide receivers, 30 receptions, 411 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And they've been targeted nearly 10 times per game. Remember, that's with Amari Cooper doing nothing. So really, it's in 4 games, those guys have put up around like 380 yards and 6 touchdowns. And I also just think that Washington knows they got to follow the Cincy game plan from last week where they have to get a lead and get the Ravens out of the ability to run. Because when they can lean on Henry, that Ravens team is terrifying to me. But if you look in their 2 blowout wins, they've ran a lot. And the other games, they turned into shootouts, and they've had to go away from Henry. You see a lot of Justice Hill on the field. And I think that's what Washington's going to try to do. For the other guy, I hate sitting Harrison Jr. because of his talent, but I think this is a McBride week. You look at it, Green Bay, I know they're 23rd right now against tight ends, but they've allowed 29 receptions to the Eagles, Colts, Titans, Vikings, and Rams tight ends. Can you even name like 2 tight ends on 3 of those 5 teams? I know I can't, and I do this every week. Colby Parkinson had 7 receptions last week versus Green Bay. I think it's going to be a big McBride-Connor week. And I mean, again, the Packers do have 1 stud corner. We got to assume that if he plays, and it looks like he is, he's going to be on Harrison. And this Bengals offense is cooking with both Higgins and Chase. It's amazing to see. And this is no disrespect to Chase, but just how much better he is when you have T. Higgins on the other side where teams have to play you pretty honestly. Yep. And maybe Cincinnati should think about that if they do not re-sign T. Higgins. But so I Flowers again is a smash for me, and then I have Higgins slightly over Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I'm definitely starting Flowers as well because Commanders defense. That's easy. The other 2, it is a little tougher for me. Because I have multiple shares of Harrison and I need him to play well. I've got a couple where he is with. I stacked him with Kyler, and the returns have not been ideal. So. But I think I am going to sit him this week. I do like the matchup, but I hear what you're saying with it being more of a McBride week. I could see that as well. He's been up and down, but 6 receptions in 2 games, 5 in another. It's there. Like what's up, Jamie? The target share is there for him. So I'm going to suck it up and have to sit Harrison this week. And
I'll
Higgins against the Giants. So suck it. # suck it, Keith.
I'll make it quick. It's sit Harrison. You guys have said it. Flowers has a great matchup. The only thing you have to worry about, say Flowers, is if Washington does fall flat, which I wouldn't be totally surprised. Right. Ooh. Does fall flat, then and the Ravens blow them out, we know what happens, right? They pass the ball 12 times and they run the ball 45 times. So then Flowers isn't going to get anything. It doesn't matter what happens. Higgins is the other start though. He's been just great. Harrison's been sort of meh. Honestly, he really has. So yeah, it's really just sit Harrison. You guys have already said everything else, so not going to repeat it.
Yeah. All right. Hopefully this one gets a little tougher here. I put some boom bust options in here for you. AJ, you got Jameson Williams versus the Cowboys, Brian Thomas Jr. in London against the Bears, or Darnell Mooney off a hot game versus the Panthers. Fight.
Thomas has been sneaky good. I really like the rapport that him and Lawrence are starting to put together here. He's got 2 games where he's just under 50 yards, and the other 3 are bangers. 94 yards. Granted, only 2 receptions, so it doesn't help you much in PPR or half. But the last 2 games, he's got 11 receptions and over 200 yards. So, and a touchdown in each game. I'm definitely starting Thomas. I really think that this is a good spot for him. I mean, I get Chicago's defense is solid against opposing receivers, but again, this is basically Jacksonville's second home in London here, so it really is a home game for them. Even though I believe they are listed as the away team. The other 2, I'm banking on Mooney over Williams because, again, we saw what Cousins did last week in that shootout game. Mooney played a big role in that as well. I think that's another really good chemistry situation going on with Cousins. I already said I was starting Cousins over Mayfield, so I'm going to double down here and go with Mooney. Williams is just kind of fallen off. I mean, I get that he's definitely still a boom or bust candidate, but Dallas, while their defense is completely atrocious against the run, they have still been pretty good against the pass at times. So I'm going to sit Williams.
I just have to say, this is why I love this show. Albert right here. I have to pick
I
2
saw
out of
that.
these 3 this week myself. And this is why I love coming up with these questions for you guys and making this difficult for you, because there's people out there that are actually dealing with these type of decisions, and it's tough. But Keith, who you starting, who you sitting?
Well, I mean, I love being opinionated about things that I can't control or don't really know what's going to happen. So I have strong opinions about this one as well. Darnell Mooney is the must start, one of the best values on DraftKings this week at 5,300. He has 37 targets the last 4 games, 23 receptions. What are we doing here? Like, are you serious? Like, I like Brian Thomas Jr. I like Jameson Williams. They ain't seeing that kind of volume. Like, Thomas has actually seen a lot of volume the last few weeks. It's nothing compared to what Mooney is. The Falcons, he's 5th in deep targets among wide receivers. Falcons are really trying to push it down the field. I mean, in PPR leagues, he's scoring 19 points per game his last 4. So, again, Mooney's automatic. And then again, when it's 2 guys that are close, and I think Thomas and Williams are close, I just look at volume. And the last 3 games, Williamson 16 targets, 5 the last 2. Thomas 27 targets the last 3. So one of them, the targets is going up, the other's targets are going down. And the Lions seem to be getting back into, we're just going to punch you in the mouth with the run game anytime we can. And this is definitely a matchup where they can do that, to where the Jags defense sucks. And almost no matter who they're playing, they're going to be down. And that means they're chucking. That's very good for Brian Thomas Jr. And I had a good friend who told me that Brian Thomas Jr. was going to be the best wide receiver in this class. And I'm like, what are you smoking? And can I have some of it? And since then, I'm starting to see the talent. Like, he saw him. He went to Auburn. He saw him play at Auburn twice. He said he's one of the most gifted wide receivers he's ever seen in person. Like, he said he looks like he's uncoverable. And we're starting to see that, to AJ's point, that he's not even getting some of these weeks, but like 2-3 targets, and he's having 95 yards. Like, this kid's a real talent. I think the Jaguars' offense is going to continue to get better. So I'm pretty, again, Mooney for sure. And I think Thomas, with what the last 3 games compared to Williams and just the competition and targets and, touches, I think Thomas is a pretty easy start over Williams as well.
Am I next? I've lost track of which order we're going in. It's Mooney and Thomas for me.
Yeah.
Williams, the fact of it is, like 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that I'm laughing because my dog was barking nonstop upstairs, and now
You
it
want
comes
some
down here and
rocks?
just, well, no, now it comes down
Yeah.
here and just lays down right next to me, and it's super quiet. So like, okay,
Need more
He
rocks.
wanted to hang
Need
out
more
with the
rocks.
boys, man. That's
I
a good
guess, I
dog.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about this too. Like the first 2 weeks of the season, Jared Goff threw the ball 83 times with a low of 28. The last 2 weeks, weeks 3 and 4, he threw the ball 41 total times with a high of 21. So, like, to your point, Keith, they are smash mouth at this point now, which has completely eliminated Jameson Williams from this offense. Because Amon-Ra is going to get his, Laporta's going to get whatever the tight ends get anymore this year. I don't know. And now Jameson Williams has nothing left. He's going to be big play dependent, and we saw that in week 4. He got the one big play. But yeah, it's a no thanks for me. I know he's super talented, but they're just not passing the ball enough. The other two,
It's great for best balls the rest of the way.
Yeah,
It's going to be tough to start him week to week, though, in your fantasy leagues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're ruining my Jameson Williams hopes and dreams.
I still believe in him. It's just
I like
it's going to take time. It's a long road. This is basically his rookie year in many ways.
Yeah. Speaking of big plays needed, I'd really like Ayuk to get his head in the game
Do something.
and not only have 2 points for me. Thanks.
It's that meme.
I mean, I saw his only catch in the first half.
Yeah. It's been rough.
Well, there's a lot of brightness here. I didn't realize all the colors on this one.
Well, Joe, you get to start us off on this one. You
Can't see.
Dontayvion Wicks against the Cardinals, Rashid Shaheed against the Buccaneers, or George Pickens against the Raiders. Fight.
So I'm sitting Shaheed because we now have a new quarterback, and I just don't know. So it's by default it's Pickens and Wicks. I don't like Pickens either though, because we just last week was weird and bad and just threw a hissy fit. I don't know. Like, come on.
Dobbs is set to come back this week. That doesn't scare you off Wicks a little bit?
It does, but like, do you really want to start Shaheed with Spencer Rattler? I don't know.
Don't make me answer that question.
I'll
make you answer that question.
I don't want to start any of these guys. I don't draft players like Rashid Shaheed for a reason. I don't like the big play dependent guys. They're just too impossible to figure out when to start. But yeah, I mean, as of right now, it's Wicks and Pickens. I mean, we're totally sure Dobbs is coming back. Is that like
it's just
official?
a 1-game suspension?
He's been practicing. It was just a 1-game suspension.
All right.
I mean, Christian Watson was even limited practice. I doubt he plays, but
He's not. I don't think he's playing again.
My dog's about to eat a Matchbox car, so you guys answer this. I'll be right back.
All right, Keith. He gave his. He's sitting Shaheed. Who you sitting in this one?
Again, for me, volume, matters, and Pickens is 10th among wide receivers in target share, 18th in target rate. Steelers are throwing it more. He's out of these three, the one you can guarantee is going to get volume. Like, he's going to get looks no matter what the game, how it plays out, whatever. Pickens is going to get targeted, so he's definitely in there. And then I will admit, like, for DFS this week and multi-entry lineups, I really like playing Shaheed and Olave with Rattler because he's 4,000. I can never remember playing a QB for 4,000 on DraftKings. It's the cheapest one ever. I guess they did not see this start coming, but that doesn't mean I want to start him over Dontayvion Wicks. I am a Wicks guy. He's first in targets on the Packers the last 3 games. Dobbs has played in those games. Watson played one of those games. He's still first. He is much better versus the zone. Like across the board, Arizona runs zone at the 5th highest rate in the NFL. And I just feel like Love is continuing to get healthy. And this Packers offense is still going to be elite from a passing perspective by the end of the season because Reed is a stud. Like, Reed's numbers versus zone, oh my God, are outrageous. Wicks are really good. You see what Kraft's done the last couple of weeks. I think Dobbs is going to kind of get phased out, and you're going to see, like, Wicks is probably going to be the third option most weeks, but we've seen with how much he gets targeted in the red zone, that's pretty good. I would say that if you're going for like the boom play, like where if you're in a desperation, I might go Shaheed Wicks over Pickens. Wicks, just because I think the Steelers should be able to handle the Raiders overall. But again, if you're just looking for the best, most likely to get you the points you needed or the most points, is definitely Wicks and Pickens, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm definitely playing Pickens. The other two, it is a toss up for me. I am worried about the Rattler sitch. But yeah, I mean, Dobbs hasn't really done anything this year aside from get suspended. I mean,
what an accomplishment, right?
Yeah, like that's kind of all he's really done. I feel like.
I mean, to be fair,
that's newsworthy.
He was dealing with
Malik Willis
for 2 games, so the passing game wasn't really anything in those games at all. So
I mean, I guess
somebody else tried to make that comment in our Discord, and I shut that down real quick. I was like, no, we're not going there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I still like the chemistry between Wicks and Love. That's probably gonna push it over for me.
Although it didn't work last week.
No, it did not.
Well, nothing worked last week.
He got targeted though a good bit. Like
he did.
It didn't work out, but his volume,
his
volume and stuff he dropped a big one. But I mean, I do think that's a real connection, and they really like him. That's I think what Dobbs was so upset was everybody's all in on Reed. Everybody's all on a Wicks. They've had all this good stuff said about him. I'm sure he feels like the odd man out when he was the guy that balled last playoffs. So
right. I mean, he's 20 targets over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It just came down to he missed 5 of them last week, and he only had 20 yards. So, again, the chemistry is clearly there. I just don't know what I'm getting out of Rattler, and Shaheed is kind of a boomer bust guy. I mean, that's his MO. So, this could be an easy, bust week because you just don't know what you're getting. And again, I was very big on picking up Tampa's defense almost everywhere I could because of the quarterback change. And I mean, Tampa's defense hasn't really been great for fantasy purposes, but 10
sacks the last 2 weeks, and you get a QB making his first start. Like I'm with you. Like they're the one who
picked it up a little bit
across the board.
Yeah, so I think that's the play there. I'm going to go Wicks and Pickens or Wickens.
All right.
Wicksons.
No, we're just gonna stop. All right, we have a couple questions. They're not dating. We don't need to make them a nickname.
Do we know that?
Moving on. Steven has a question here. Need 2 flex spots, full PPR, Chase Brown, Najee Harris, George Pickens. I love Chase Brown potential, but you still got to go Harris and Pickens, in my opinion. You just know they're guaranteed to get the work, to where it's still very uncertain with Brown.
Yeah, I agree. I missed the chance to say weed for Wicks and Shaheed. Can I change my answer, Mike, for their couple name?
I'll allow it.
Yeah, of course you will.
Wow, low blow.
What do you mean low blow? Okay.
Well, I'm not going to say high blow.
All right.
You get high from blow.
Here. Harry just traded Brian Thomas Jr. and J.K. Dobbins for Breece Hall. Good move. I mean, I like Brian Thomas Jr., but yeah, that's probably a really good buy low, in my opinion.
Unless it's Dynasty. That would be the only place where I'd be like, woo. But again, because I just don't believe in running backs, but for a season long, I mean, it's got to get better for Breece. I just can't believe this is the way this season's going to go out with a better quarterback and better weapons around him.
The only thing you've got to the only worry, and I had this and I said it, the only worry for Breece Hall is the Rodgers factor of I can do all this myself. I don't need a running back. And he's working out really well out of every play, and he's not good anymore. And so the offense is going to struggle because of it. He doesn't have, the coaching staff there to kind of be like, no, run our damn plays. like they'll work. You've got a, elite running back behind you. Let's use him. Just whatever. So, other question here. Goff, Caleb, or Cousins this week, 6-point passing TDs. 6-point passing TDs doesn't really change a whole lot for me. They're all really close. I'm still going Caleb, I think.
Yeah, I would probably lean Caleb only because, again, my only concern about Cousins this week is the Panthers are so bad against the run as well. And the Falcons actually have two backs that should be able to do something to where we've seen what kind of DeAndre Swift, even though they've been better lately. And again, the Jags' second most passing yards allowed in the NFL. And Caleb, again, 5 passing touchdowns in his last 2 games versus bad, pass defenses with 300+ yards. So it's a good place to be. Goff would be the only one that I just, unfortunately for golf owners, it's going to be, if the line for like Chris Robin, if the Lions are losing, Goff will be a great play. But in games that they can control and play the game they want to, it's going to be a heavy 1-2 dose of Gibbs Montgomery the rest of the year and a lot of play action.
Absolutely. And then Jamie in here saying he shares a team with Ollie Garbage in the chat. Start to Olave, Cooper, Brian Thomas, or Deontay full PPR.
Olave is a definite. Well,
yeah, I don't think Olave's definite
I think the only
anymore.
definite's Brian Thomas in that one.
Really? You don't think Deontay versus because the issue again, if Deontay plays, the Falcons have no pass rush, none.
Yeah.
And I think that he gets open enough to catch passes in a full point PPR that you have to play him for sure.
I honestly think those are the answers. It's Brian and Deontay. Like, you can't trust Deshaun Watson right now with Cooper. And
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Same goes with Rattler and Olave the first game.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Rattler's come out and said, I need to get him the ball, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, then do it. But
I mean, I legit. So Deontay Johnson's way up in my rankings for this. I do have Olave and Brian Thomas back to back in my rankings for PPR right now. I mean, you kind of like when a rookie comes out and says, "Hey, I'm going to get the ball to my best guy." Maybe that's a real thing, and it's the smart thing to do. We'll see if he can actually do it. Yeah, I don't know. That's a scary one. Olave's probably the better overall player. Thomas might be safer.
Again, though, I mean, the 27 targets the last 3 games.
I get it.
The last time Thomas played an elite, defense, the Browns, he had 4 targets and had 94 yards and 2 receptions. So if he's getting 9 targets a game, I don't really care how good the defense is. I agree with, not knowing what the Rattler Olave thing is. I think Deontay Johnson may get ruled out, so it's going to be easy and you just go Olave Thomas anyway. But I just think in full point PPR, you can't sit Deontay Johnson against a defense like my Falcons that has no pass rush whatsoever. None.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over here to the tight end question on the board.
All right, AJ, you got a fun one. You want Mark Andrews versus the Commanders or Colt Kmet versus the Jaguars? Fight.
Well, I finally did it. I finally sat Mark Andrews last week.
I know. So did everybody.
And he finally got a ball. And I'm like, you SOB.
Couple feet away from a touchdown, too.
Yeah. I mean, Likely actually had a decent game, too. I mean,
2 touchdowns.
That was big for him.
Still the 3rd highest scoring tight end on his own team, though.
Andrews?
Yeah, Andrews.
Charlie Kohler.
I think I'm gonna. I think I'm still sitting Andrews until unless you absolutely have to play him like I do in Dynasty 6-pack. That's the only reason I'm starting him. I have 0 other options, so I'm going Kmet over him this week. Again, Jacksonville's D is not that scary. Travel game, kind of off, but I think Kmet's been a nice little safety net there. And I will say I definitely nailed that DJ Moore call last week in the revenge game because he balled out. So I saw that earlier and was had to make sure I mentioned that tonight. Not sure if any of my other calls were right, but that one definitely was.
It's amazing how we remember the right ones, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Got one.
Joe, who you starting? Who you sitting?
I'm sitting Andrews. I know, everybody probably looking at the matchup thinking Washington. Oddly enough, they're actually pretty good against tight ends. So, I'm not gonna take one random game where it was like a complete shootout and that Andrews, caught 4 passes or whatever nonsense it was the first time in 3 weeks. Like I'm not gonna believe in that. I don't like Kmet either. Like none of these guys excite me. I don't know. Tight end position blows this year. I was all excited about it coming into the season, and I'm so pissed about it. So, Sid Andrews, I suppose.
I just real quickly want to throw cold water on the people that are hoping that this is the Mark Andrews turnaround game. I am taking victory laps. I said all summer Mark Andrews was done being the best tight end on his team, and that's been the case. I mean, his last 3 games, 7 targets, 4 receptions, 55 yards. In fact, the 2 games that Lamar has thrown 41 or more times, he has 6 catches for 69 yards. So there you go. Hang your hat on that. If Lamar throws it 40 times a game, he can average 3 catches for 34 yards this season the rest of the way. To where Kmet, once the Bears realize that maybe we should play the better tight end, his last 3 games, 18 targets, 16 receptions, 188 yards, a touchdown for tight ends. That's like, Dick Butkus or something. So I am, definitely going Cole Kmet. And I hate to tell people, the quicker you realize Andrews is done, it's over. Like the better tight end, they got 2 better tight ends than him right now. All of his numbers have been declining. Those days are over. Flowers is the lead receiver. They're going to run it when they can. Like the better you're going to be.
All right. Now we get to finish it off with our flex question. And Keith, you get to finish it off. You get Calvin Ridley versus the Colts or Tank Bigsby against the Bears. What do you want in your flex?
I truly do want Bigsby for all the reasons that Joe was talking about earlier. I will tell you straight up, fuck Calvin Ridley. He quit on the Atlanta Falcons. I wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire. So I'm definitely taking Tank Bigsby over him, but I also believe Bigsby is a better play and somebody that if, say, somebody doesn't understand what they potentially have in Bigsby, you might could trade and get him still right now from somebody who, say, they're his 3rd or 4th running back and they just picked him up on waivers. I am 100% with Joe that in 3-4 weeks, Tank Bigsby could end up basically being in the David Montgomery role, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he's seeing about 60% of the rush attempts and, start scoring a lot of touchdowns. He's going to be a lot better in the red zone than Travis Etienne has been in his career.
Yeah.
All right, AJ.
I'm going Bigsby as well on this. Just for everything, public, that we've said about him already in this show. Ridley is he's just passed for me. I mean, I'm over him. Like he wasn't good last year. He hasn't really been good this year. I'm done. Not interested in him.
Joe?
Yeah, this is one of the ones where like the projections and the rankings, the projections kind of point me in the direction of saying Ridley. My gut does say Bigsby though. It is a tough matchup though. That's the one thing sort of making me not want to lean that way. But I mean, Calvin Ridley hasn't been good. Even if Will Levis plays, that hasn't really worked. Outside of one game, like this, Bigsby feels a little safer, like weirdly enough, even if he only does get, 12, 13, 14 touches total. That's still going to be way more than Calvin Ridley sees. So I don't want to lean Bigsby here. So,
All right. That wraps it up for the first set.
All right. So that is it for our start sit portion of the show. We're going to jump into our observations from week 5 and, just kind of what we've noticed throughout the season as a whole here. Keith, what we do here, man, this is kind of a new segment we started just a couple weeks ago. Whoa, everything just switched. I was looking at Keith and then I was looking at AJ and I don't want to do that.
You're used to it by now.
So what we do here is, we kind of take a look back at, either last week, maybe some season long kind of trends that you've been seeing, just something you want to rant about. We all know AJ just will rant about the Eagles somehow. So
I can't. They didn't play last week.
You'll figure out it. You'll figure out a way. I'm not going to mention the other Philly team that you would easily rant about.
Too soon. Fuck the Mets. That's all.
You lasted longer than the Braves, AJ. That's all I can say for you, buddy. So,
all right.
Fuck the Mets.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go first here, and I'm gonna start off here with it, kind of looking at these like QB changes, right? So we're seeing a lot of we're getting into that time where it's like, okay, the QB that we had starting wasn't working, right? The Patriots kind of went with Brissett at first, now switching to Drake Maye. The Raiders started with Minshew, now swapping back to Aiden O'Connell. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it go back to Minshew at some point. I know it's because of injury, but Joe Flacco now in with Indy, does that stick if they start being a little more competitive? That's an interesting one. Do the Browns finally make a move? As everybody's please, just anything. We just need this offense to actually be competent. Please do something here with Watson. It doesn't work right now. But let's focus on the Drake Maye and Aiden O'Connell. I am absolutely terrified for Drake Maye this week and probably beyond. The Patriots offensive line is really bad. And so we talked about a pre-show, how these quarterbacks who sat for a while and just learned watching the game, learning from a good, a quarterback in front of them that was doing pretty well. Not that Brissett's awesome, but Drake Maye is going into a situation where there's really nothing there for him to succeed. The running game is kind of stale. The receivers aren't awesome. The offensive line is terrible. I mean, that's what you get with a bottom 3 team in the NFL a lot of times. To me, you just don't start Maye this year. What's the point? You already know he's going to be your starting quarterback for the next 2-3 years anyway, right? What are you going to do? You're going to get this guy, pummeled, and he's going to start getting happy feet. He's going to throw the ball too early. He's going to start throwing picks. We see it time and time again. Not everybody's going to come out like CJ Stroud did last year, or even Jaden Daniels this year, right? That's yeah. You like that, huh, dog?
Drake Maye all the way. Yeah.
I think it's a bad move, honestly. I really do. Aiden O'Connell, fine, whatever, I guess, but it's not gonna have Devontae Adams, so good luck. The Raiders are a mess. I don't know what they're gonna try to do over there, but
they're gonna give my boy Brock Bowers a bunch. It's great. It's working out perfect.
I guess that's the only thing they got going for him right now. So, yeah, I mean the QB changes, and now we got Spencer Rattler. I don't know if that's really gonna be a thing that works out, but this is the type of thing that's really changing the landscape of, fantasy for these next few weeks. Like it's really gonna matter for some of the position players on those teams with these starting quarterbacks. So it's something to really pay attention to. And if you've got like a Chris Olave and Rattler sticks, better hope that it works. Or if he has one big game, maybe trade him.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking.
Yeah.
Buy low, sell high.
Yeah, I think, just to touch on this, in our notes here, we have, whether or not the Colts should stick with Flacco. I mean, you mentioned the Browns too. They are probably kicking themselves for letting him go and still dealing with Watson. I mean, they're not going to bench him because of all the money they're giving him. Like that. Not yet, at least. Maybe later in the season as things go on. He does play the Eagles this week, so he could probably have a decent game. And maybe that gives them some sort of hope. But yeah, I think sticking with Flacco could be a good move for a couple of weeks. I mean, I'm worried that because of his age and what we've seen, with a small sample size of him coming back, he's been really good. But again, when is that shine going to kind of re-wear off on Mr. Elite? I worry about that. And I mean, Richardson is their guy. He's their franchise quarterback. So they're going to keep him there, or keep him as the focal point. But if for any reason he's just not 100%, I don't see the point in trying to rush him back because you have a nice stopgap with Flacco. So I would lean that way. Maye, I agree with everything you pointed out. Like, I think he could get demolished early. And Jacoby he's a serviceable quarterback. Like, he didn't necessarily do anything wrong to lose this job. I feel like, it's that line. That line is atrocious. It is like the biggest hold Swiss cheese of all time rolling down a hill. It's just terrible for quarterbacks. They're just, the Patriots are in a disarray with their running game. They don't know which one of them they want to start. It's just a bad situation. And, I don't know if I see it getting better with Drake Maye. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm wrong. But TBD there, I guess. And
I'm not banking on it. So
O'Connell.
Keith, what you got? What you been noticing so far this season, man, that's caught your eye?
That I'm changing my opinion on, again, my draft strategies, because, I'm old enough. I drafted running backs with at least 3 out of my first 4 or 5 picks 10 years ago. Every single draft, it never mattered. Like, that's how I was going to start. I pivoted in the last 4 or 5 years to where now I don't usually draft a running back before the 4th, 5th round. And now you have to have a running QB. You have to. There is no reason to spend on a Joe Burrow or a CJ Stroud or anything. They're great, but they're just as likely to have a down year, have a receiver get injured. It's kind of like with running backs. You're banking on luck to where these guys, you get 3 times the points for rushing that you do for passing. Why have we not figured this out before this year? And I went and looked at it just now because I was like, well, I might as well rant about this because I was talking about it the other day. If you take away the guys that have started at least 4 games, so you can throw out Flacco's right now in there. There's one other guy in the top 12 that hasn't. The top 10 QBs in points per game: Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts. What do all those guys have in common? They have a humongous high floor because of their rushing upside. Jaden Daniels right now is averaging over 10 points per game. just on the ground through 5 weeks. And at the end of the day, they are so valuable. They are so much more valuable than any other position. It's why I screamed for 3 weeks on our waiver wire show on Fantasy Friends, go pick up Justin Fields. And people didn't listen to me. And he's already the 12th QB. He will end up being a top 10 QB this year. 1,000% if he stays healthy through the rest of the year. Why? The rushing upside. He didn't even ran that much. And he's already a top 10 QB right now in points per game. So you have to adjust the way you think about these things. And whether it be DFS or season long, I am now to the point you have to have one of these guys. For me this year, I've been very fortunate. It was Jaden Daniels. I saw that he was going in like the 7th, 8th round, and I just took him everywhere. But you can also get somebody like Justin Fields, who's still available in leagues right now. And he's going to get you 10 to 12 points no matter what because of his rushing upside. The one other thing I just was thinking about the other day in this, if you watch the Lamar Jackson touchdown where he fumbled the ball, then ran around, stiff-armed a 280-pound defensive lineman twice, and then threw off his back foot a beautiful touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely. I just think about if you drop Lamar Jackson in the 80s, 90s, 70s, like what in the world would coaches and fans think? Because you go back and watch those games, the QBs were statues. Like they didn't move. If they threw for 250 yards, that was a huge performance. This guy is running 60 yards total distance on a pass play, stiff-arming defensive linemen, fumbling the ball, picking it up, and throwing touchdowns. I don't think people appreciate how athletic these quarterbacks have gotten. And yes, I understand the rules have changed, and it's very, tailored to the offense. You can't hit QBs the same way. But it's just funny. It took so long to realize, hey, maybe, these guys in college for almost 2 decades, the most successful QBs could run and throw. Maybe that would work in the NFL. And now if you look at it, more and more of the top QBs in the NFL run. You look, Brock Purdy's running more. Baker Mayfield is actually running some this year. Like it is now a necessity, in my opinion, to be a top-notch offense and stuff, to have the ability for the QBs to both run and throw. So it's just funny how the game changes, and you do have to adapt both the way you look at it and, to me, the way you fill out your DFS lineups, draft your fantasy teams, etc.
Yeah, I said it before the season. Like, I still had Mahomes ranked high, but I wasn't drafting him where he was going, not even close. And so glad I passed. Like it was going to. Now I know Mahomes has had a lot of things go against him this season. Lost 2 of his receivers right off the bat. Lost Pacheco. So yeah, it is what it is. But it takes a guy like Pat Mahomes to throw 40, 45 touchdowns a year to be an elite quarterback in fantasy. Now in the real NFL game, Pat Mahomes is still elite. He's still going to win Super Bowls. But in the fantasy game, we don't care about that.
Yep.
We want points. It could be ugly. I don't really care. I mean, that's what it is. So, I'm totally with you. Early on in the draft season, I was all over Kyler Murray because he was going late. He started rising up draft boards. I started just getting whoever else was lower down the list as far as rushing quarterbacks. I got Daniels in a couple spots, so that's working out well. But the one league that I kind of wish I hadn't done it was in a 6-point passing TD league. I was like, oh, it's okay. I can take the passing quarterbacks a little more. It still doesn't matter. It really doesn't. CJ Stroud was my guy, and he's fine, but those extra 2 points for those passing touchdowns aren't making up the difference in rushing that those guys can give you. So I'm totally.
He's got to throw 2 touchdowns
I
each
know.
week just to get what Daniels eclipse what Daniels is getting in rushing every week. That's insane.
In one play,
and that's a 6-point touchdown league, right?
Yeah.
If it was a 4-point, he'd have to throw 3. I mean, it's crazy.
I just want to go back to this Patriots team and this running game, right? So last week, the big news, right, was, Ramondre Stevens is getting benched. Whatever. And everybody's like, oh man, here we go. Antonio Gibson, he's the guy. Keith, our boys down in South Florida, man. I was on the show and I talked about this. I was like, be careful. This feels like like Antonio Gibson's going to get that ceremonial start, that first carry, and then it's still going to be Stevenson. Like, it totally was. What a joke. The only thing Gibson led in last week was snaps by 1. 26 snaps.
His reward
25.
was he got to pass block more than Ramondre Stevenson
Right?
and get
Good
these
job.
big defenders smashing into
Oh,
him. It's
my
like Stevenson's
goodness.
like, maybe I should, fumble a few more times and
Yeah.
just get nothing but carries and not have to block or anything.
Yeah. I mean, look, it maybe it lit a fire, under what to him, kind of like it did in Swift in Chicago, where, we're going to give Roschon Johnson more carries. Swift's like, I don't think so. And like, I can actually run this ball, and decided, yeah, I'm going to actually have to do something. Maybe that was a little bit, I'm sure it was a little motivation, but yeah, look, we all know they paid Stevenson this year. They were not literally going to turn this backfield over into Antonio Gibson, not on a team that's going absolutely nowhere. That'd be just nonsense. Jamie over here, they need to give Roschon more. Hey, take your 2 touchdowns every week and just be happy.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Like, I'm so happy I was able to get him in a few leagues because he seems to be getting most of the red zone touches, which is
we
great.
do have 2 questions here before AJ. I just noticed these. So Jay, Tank Dell, Bigsby, or Brian Robinson this week? PPR. And Brian Robinson's got that real tough matchup. You cannot run against this Ravens defense, and
and he's not getting catches. Like, he's not.
He's getting more than you think,
but not what he was like last year down the stretch. Hell, he was one of the best pass catching backs in the league. To me, it's Tank Dell by a lot.
Yeah,
again,
I think so.
Defense runs a ton of man. Dell so much better versus man than he is zone. I know you would think he's a zone. That's not true. Like, he gets more fantasy points per target. He gets more yards per route run. All that is significantly more versus man than in his zone. This is a team that runs man at like the 5th highest rate in the NFL. And I think
him run right by you and man.
Yep.
So good luck.
I think he's going to have his breakout. That's why I like that first question with Stroud. That's my only concern, is the fact that both Dell and Diggs are very good versus man. So it could be a day where, it's just big plays left and right for CJ Stroud and the Texans offense.
Yeah, I'm definitely going Dell and Bigsby here. Robinson's also still questionable with this knee issue. He didn't practice today.
I think it's pick 1, by the way. So Dell.
Oh, it's just if it's just one, then I'm going Dell. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So next question here, we'll just give it Chase Brown or Zach Moss or Brian Robinson. Yeah. I'm going Brian Robinson, but if Zach Moss doesn't play, which is a very is a concern right now. If that happens, you got to go Chase Brown. But if both Brown and Moss are on the field, you got to go Brian Robinson and just hope he falls in the end zone, because I don't know if you're going to get much else.
Yeah.
So I kind of like Brown either way. I completely agree with you that it's like a smash play if Moss is out, but I watched that Moss play. It looked like he was basically knowing if he misses any time, he could lose his job, because I was shocked he came back in. Like, I thought he was done for the year.
Yeah.
And again, the Ravens, I do think Daniels is going to be able to run on them, but Brian Robinson, Eckler, like, it's going to be all pass catching. So if it's not a full point PPR, I think it's Chase Brown either way.
All right. AJ, what's your second and final kind of takeaway observation that you want to mention here?
I think the big thing here is the Jets situation. Like, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Robert Saleh is fired. Everyone thinks that it was, Rodgers that had a hand in it. He claims he does not. I actually believe him. I don't think that this was something that he facilitated. I just don't know what to make of this. Wilson had an awesome game. But now there's the Hackett's gone. so he's not calling plays. This is going to be a very interesting week. We've seen what happens with coaching changes, though, in the NFL. When it happens, especially like mid-season like this. I mean, this is not even mid-season. This is early season. Is this going to ignite this team? Rodgers is a little banged up, so we'll see. But he's going to play. I can't see him sitting. I hope that this helps Wilson's stock, and he continues to shine and have big games. TBD, but it was a surprise to me to see Salah fired this early, specifically. I get it that they're 2-3, but I don't know. I think it's too quick to make a change. Here again, though, the Eagles, do they want to make the change? There was talk about that on local radio stations. So I don't see it happening. That's not their MO. They do not make changes midseason with coaching.
What do you think as an Eagles fan? Like, cause I don't think he's like, look, you hired these coordinators at some point, like you got to quit blaming the offense and defensive coordinator and look in the mirror. Right. But I'm an outsider, so I don't know.
It's a really weird dynamic because all I hear about on sports talk locally is, what is Nick Sirianni's job? Everybody freaking asks the guy this every week. And it's like, what's John Harbaugh's job?
Man.
He's the same damn thing. He's there as the head coach facilitating the team. Granted, he is an awesome head coach. I love John Harbaugh. But that's we have this around the league where it's the coordinators run their offense and their defense, and the head coach has input. Everything they talk about it's collaborative, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like a big unknown. I think the bottom line with Philly is the team's just not that good. They're not, like, they've got talent, but they've got draft picks that aren't showing up. They went all in on the Georgia defense, and it's really not working out. Jalen Carter has been really good at times.
I could do a Georgia fan down here. Careful.
I know. Well, that's why I'm bringing it up.
That's why he's saying, hey, come on, get your guys to fucking together.
Yeah. Like, Davis he can't stay, out of the kitchen and keep his weight down.
I was worried about that coming out of college.
Yeah. He's a big, powerful guy. But I still wish they would have taken Hamilton instead of letting him fall to Baltimore and taking Jordan Davis.
Of course, yeah.
They looked at it as the fill-in for Fletcher Cox, and he's just not it. He's not the answer. Nolan Smith
in their defense, they didn't know Jalen Carter was going to fall on your laps because the Falcons were going to take a fucking running back at 8 and let like a generational pass rusher in the middle just go. So.
Yeah. And I love Carter. I think he's going to be special.
Mm-hmm.
He still needs to mature a little bit, but other than that,
he's young though. I think he's only just turned 23.
Yeah, he's real young. Nakobe Dean has, he's fought injuries and whatnot, so it's not all.
Kind of a tweener though. I wasn't sure how they were going to use him.
But
how much of this is Steichen though? Because to me it's just like that.
Phenomenal.
He was great, right? Like you look what the Colts did last year, what they're doing with Flacco. Like he's just a great play caller, and I think that's the biggest difference. I saw this in Atlanta with Shanahan. Once Shanahan was gone, all of a sudden that mini Falcons run was over because he was the reason we were great.
Yeah, I think. I wouldn't be surprised if Sirianni is gone after this year if the team continues to shuffle around and be mediocre. I don't necessarily think he's completely all at fault. The players got to play. They got to execute. and they've got to be able to track these coordinators' schemes and be able to learn them and do them. Football is football. It's just called something different who you're talking to. Steichen probably has a lot of the same shit that Kellen Moore has, and it's just a matter of practicing it and executing it. And I just don't know what the answer is yet. But I mean, the Eagles have been a fucking train wreck since last year. So there you go.
Keith, we didn't warn you. You don't bring up the Eagles to AJ. He will go on a 10-minute rant.
You need that though. Like as fans, I'm a Falcons fan. I understand sometimes you just got to be able to vent, or you literally will want to like go in the corner and just cry because it just it's so miserable.
He rants every week. It's okay. All right, Keith, let's close it up here, man. What's one last thing you've been paying attention to?
Just I can't believe how much I have to revisit like the 2018 draft class because everybody looked at Baker and Darnell. Like I know Lamar and Allen have obviously been darlings for years, but we just, cast them off. They're busts. And we just keep getting reminded over and over again, these guys got to be in the right situation with the right play caller, the right weapons around them, because all of a sudden Sam Darnold's really good. Baker Mayfield is incredible. Like he has been cooking they changed offensive schemes in the last year, and he's still just killing it this year. You look at Malik Willis and Green Bay, guy that looked like the worst draft pick in the history of mankind when he played for Tennessee. He gets with LaFleur one of the best play callers in football. And I know he wasn't asked to do a lot, but he was good. Like they were 2-0 with him. They're 1-2 with Love. Like say what you want to say. It's just amazing how quickly we give up on these guys. And that's why if I was a smart coach who believed I'm a good play caller, I'd be calling Carolina going, tell me what I need to take Bryce Young off your hands, because
absolutely.
I mean, you just got to give these kids some love, some tender, and give them a good offensive line, a good scheme that they understand. To your point, give some patience, like let them grow and learn before you just throw them into it, because we're seeing over and over again how much that matters. And to your point earlier, there's going to be a CJ Stroud, there's going to be a Jaden Daniels, that they're like a genius, right? Like they're the exception to the rule. They're not the rule. And it just, the sooner organizations learn this, they're investing so much in QBs and then setting them up to fail, which to me is just laughable.
Don't do the David Carr. We talked about that. Like he got pummeled back there, and now he's dreaming of, having nightmares of getting sacked. That's how bad it is. Yep. So I feel you, man. I feel you. It's very interesting. I mean, I'm not sure I'm totally buying in on Sam Darnold. We saw a little taste of this with Carolina a couple years ago. He was like leading the league in like fantasy points for a while.
But that was rushing. If you
I get
remember.
This
is passing, and I believe in O'Connell. Last year,
no, I get you.
I mean, it's unreal what he did with Dobbs and all those guys. They led the league in passing yards, which is insane.
I get you. It is different this year. I don't know if I'm going to put him, like he's all of a sudden like awesome, but he's not as bad as people were making him out to be. I mean, the Jets are just a terrible organization.
It's like
so
there you
go. So, all right, man. Well, that is it for the show. Keith, I want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man.
Before we let you go, let everybody know where they can find you and what else you got going on this year.
You got it. You can find me at fantasy6pack.net on the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel. You can find me in the Fantasy Six Pack Discord. And then we also do some stuff on Fantasy and Frames. I have an article that comes out on there, as well as an article that I hope to get submitted for Fantasy Six Pack tonight, worst case tomorrow morning, for DFS stacks and value plays. Very excited about some of the stacks I'm running this week. Every Sunday morning, really enjoy doing the Sunday social show on Fantasy Six Pack. The last hour, me and Chris Robin getting you ready for DFS each week. And then on Wednesdays, I go on ESPN Northwest Florida, talk DFS football for basically about 2 segments every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we will pivot to golf, which I also do for Fantasy Six Pack. once football season ends. So I'm year round just giving you a lot of stats because I'm a huge nerd. That's what I like to do. So
That's why we got you here, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. So, all right, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and
Yeah.
we'll have to do it again. And
Yeah, thanks,
see
Keith.
you
Good
Sunday
chatting
for
with
sure.
you again.
All right, AJ. That's it for the show. I think
Are we
that's-
going to have a running back controversy in San Fran now?
no,
With
because they don't do that.
Garando? Did you just see his
Whoever
huge run?
whoever starts behind that line and in that scheme is good. It doesn't really matter.
Kyle Juszczyk just getting a touchdown here, so
That'll piss everybody off. But
yep.
all right, man. Well, that's it for the show. Thank you all for listening. Reminder to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave those comments, 5-star reviews wherever you're listening or watching, and jump over to fantasy6pack.net, become an all access member, and jump in our Discord. We love to talk to you guys. On that note, I'm out. Peace.
All right. Good night.